What's up, everybody? How are you doing today? What's everybody up to on this beautiful Tuesday? Practicing? You reading books? Hanging out watching Netflix? What are you up to? The Epic of Gilgamesh. I'm not sure I ever read that. I was probably assigned it, but I probably found some way not to read it and then to get out of it. Or to fake it till I made it, you know? That sounds good. Sounds like a pretty good day so far. I had a great day, actually. Any day that I have very little to do is always a great day. So I read a bunch this morning. I got up and made the kids breakfast and made their lunches, and then I read a bunch this morning. And then I took care of some stuff for releasing Mike Martin's podcast episode tomorrow. And then I finished, or basically finished, the winning the job for next month. And I double checked on another one that I'm going to release next month to make sure everything was good with that. And yeah, it was a good day. Picked up my kids from school, made some chicken noodle soup, but zucchini noodles because I'm on Whole30. Well, we'll see how it goes. Might be good. Yeah, Mike Martin's podcast should be really, really great. I'm hoping lots of people listen to it, lots of people like it, because it's, of all of the interviews I've listened to, it's kind of a side of Mike that doesn't get shown off very often. What tips do you have someone going through an embouchure change? I have a few tips myself. The tips would be going slow to go fast, doing a few sessions of 5 minutes per day rather than trying to just jump back in. Basically mentally getting yourself into a space where you are okay with starting over, sort of being a beginner. And then just be patient with yourself. I have not gone through an embouchure change myself, so I am not necessarily the best consultant of that kind of thing. But Ruben, if you don't know about my podcast, it's called That's Not Spit, It's Condensation. And on that podcast, I interviewed a very good friend of mine named Matthew Vangel. And he let me double check on this. All right. So here's a blog post that you can check out. On that blog post, it's my thoughts about the episode with Matt, plus links to the actual podcast itself, and then you can search through and find Matt's. It was done in May of this past year, so it's a little bit back there. But then it also has a link in that blog post called The Dreaded Embouchure Change, and it's got a lot, or maybe most of Matt's thoughts related to embouchure changes. And I would just, if you're going through it or you're trying to help somebody else go through it, I would read through that, because it's going to not only be a resource for you, but a resource you can keep coming back to in case you forget anything that we would talk about. So I would send you to that episode. It's I think it's a little over an hour long, so it's pretty comprehensive. And then that embouchure change thing, between those two things, you should get a pretty good sense for what things would be good for an embouchure change. Meal prep for the week, man. That sounds awesome. What do you do? What kinds of things do you do? Are you meal prepping so because you're busy? Are you meal prepping so that you can do like portion control type stuff? Why are you meal prepping, and what types of foods do you typically stick to when you are prepping? Donald, what's going on? Good to see you, or good to have you here, I guess. I've said this on the past few streams, but it's a little bit different from what I did for the previous like 5 or 6 weeks. So I always think it's worth mentioning that in my flow studies now, when I get to the top note, I'm adding just one tongued note, so I can gradually learn what that feels like to tongue up in this register. And then as I become more comfortable, then I'll start adding more and more and more amounts of tonguing or more exercises or whatever. But one articulation for now. Also, if anybody else in the chat has any ideas on embouchure changes that they want to talk to Ruben about, maybe you've gone through one, you've helped somebody through one, or you've just done some research and you have some advice for Ruben. In some ways, I feel that having a good amount of information and then either trying one thing and seeing if it works, or just sort of getting a lot of information and then deciding which things you think work. Sometimes too information can be a bad thing, but if you're able to sift through it, too much information is actually good, because then you're getting a full picture of what's possible. So if anybody has any advice or any ideas for Ruben as well for tips, I just put them in the chat so he can read them there too. Dude, the flu sucks, man. I'm really sorry. Just get your bed rest, get some fluids, and hopefully it doesn't take like a week or a week and a half to go away like it does for my kids. There you go, Ruben. There's a couple more resources for you to check out. Like I said, if you're doing the embouchure change thing. Round shape. That's pretty good. Yeah, 12-hour shifts sound pretty brutal, and um, yeah, I should do more meal prep. Right now, my wife and I just plan what we're gonna make, but we don't prep it beforehand. Even just planning what we're gonna make makes everything so much. It's just like planning in general. Obviously, that's like what this whole channel is about. Is like organization makes life easier. But to go that far with meal prep, especially if you're that busy, it sounds, yeah, I would imagine it's the only way you can be successful in having, weight loss goals or, strength based gym goals and stuff like that too. All right. Routine. Do we have the right page? Nope. Sometimes I forget to check this. Ruben, is it? I have heard from a birdie that Caleb was like dealing with some embouchure stuff too. I mean, nothing serious, but he was thinking about embouchure related things. Is that true? Because it seems hard to believe considering how amazing he sounds. What should we do first? Let's do the sax. Page 9. Yeah, those are those things called like icon meals or something like that. How's that going for him? Is he able to? A friend of mine, Robbie Garrison, told me that Caleb listened to that episode that I had told you about and found it to be pretty helpful. Like I said, that's when I found out about it, and I was like pretty shocked. I hope it's going well for him. All right, 76. Sounds like he's doing just fine. Yeah. I'm planning on reaching out and trying to set up some school visits and stuff like that. And so, um, I'm not sure if you guys bring guests to UNT, but it would be awesome to be able to come out and do a class or, talk about whatever. I'm going to try to reach out to Caleb and see if I can do that. All right, I'm gonna play soft, loud, soft, loud, soft, loud, soft. I think I accidentally skipped one in there. I shouldn't have ended on a loud one, but that's all right. Yeah, that's a great idea, Donald. I mean, if I don't want to assume Caleb wants to be or does the podcast thing, but I would definitely be interested. I met Justin. I've only met Justin one time. Apparently, he's from this area, but I only met him one time, and it was. Sorry, it was in the finals for one of the Cincinnati principal auditions. He was a super nice guy. How was his masterclass? I have to also, sorry, I have to do this now at 1:22. This 1 minute drill. I cannot do it, so I'm gonna do one spurt as long as I can, and then I'm gonna try to just get da 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 da, and maybe da 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 da. Something like that. So I can just keep trying to tongue that fast, but I'm not going to be able to play 1 full minute because I couldn't do it last week either. Hope everybody's ready. My tongue is so slow. That's not slow, right? But like I know it's not. I know my tongue isn't slow, but I want it to go faster, and so it feels slow. Not gonna try to complain too much. Just gonna try to put in the work, you know. All right, where are we? Triple tonguing, 155. Was his masterclass like an excerpts based one? Did he hear people play solos? Did he play with anybody? Um, how does like what is the principal trumpet of the Colorado Symphony come in and do with you guys? I'm really curious because yeah, I'm gonna start reaching out to schools and stuff like that, and I got to kind of figure out. I mean, obviously the schools will say what they think is best, or the teachers will say what they think is best, but kind of giving an idea of what people might want me to do versus whatever I think I should just do. Hey, Mom. All right. We're going to triple tongue faster than I can triple tongue. Here we go. We have reached my threshold. It's very difficult for me to go faster than what I'm doing here. So what my plan is, what I learned from doing this routine right here, what I learned from doing that routine is I learned two very important things. One, I did not pick my numbers correctly to end at. I picked sort of what I thought would be, let's see. I kind of picked what I thought would be ambitious, thinking that I could make more progress in 2 months than I really can. What I should have done, the very first time I did it, what I should have done was picked something I know I can do so that I can take 2 months to just establish good habits. And then we can worry about going faster and faster and faster. But finding your place to start is often the first place when making a plan, right? So whether you do anything that I'm doing or you do your own plan, you kind of have to take a little bit of time to find out where you're at. And that takes more than 1 day or 1 week. Sometimes it can take up to a month to sort of push your limits week after week after week to find out where you're at and what you're capable of at your best, not just what you're capable of, right? And so if there's any advice I can give when building your own kind of programming and investing in your playing long term, it's just you got to find that starting point first. And sometimes it means taking a few steps back so you can take a lot of steps forward. And not a lot of people like to go backwards. It's seemingly we would rather crawl forward as long as we're making some progress than back up. It's like we'd rather like sort of crawl because our legs are broken than just back up, get back in bed, let our legs heal so we can do things properly and then move forward. It's kind of a crude analogy, but it sort of works. Right now, if you're somebody who practices and you feel like you're hitting your head up against a wall and you're making some progress and then coming back, some progress and coming back, it's like you're trying to crawl because your legs are broken. And what you should do is go back to bed, get a plan of how you're going to move forward, and then start to take baby steps forward, but with walking so that we can ingrain good habits and actually get better as instrumentalists. All that being said, the other thing I learned was... Oh, no, I already said the two things. The third thing I was going to say is right now I'm just pushing myself, pushing my limits. And I'm not under the assumption that this is... I'm not under the assumption that I'm getting better right now. I want to make that very clear. I am just testing. I'm taking this day, this week, next week to test, to see where I'm at, see what I'm capable of. I have sort of left I'm getting better, and I have entered let's see what I can do, right? Now, when if we practice always to see what we can do, we don't really get better. It is necessary for us to test and see what's going on, but we have to make sure that we also have a big phase of I'm going to get better now too. And so I'm learning what I need to learn, right? I'm learning how I want to triple tongue in the future so that I can do it faster. It needs to be, when I play slow, what I'm learning right now is when I play slow, it needs to be a little bit smoother, right? It needs to be a little bit, not but right? It's hard to, instead of, it needs to be, and just sort of let the ricochet do the work of creating the clarity, right? This is when you hear Sergei Nikaryakov tonguing so fast, there's an efficiency in the movement that I haven't figured out yet. We already have people who are signed to play for him. Some want to work on solos, and others want to work on excerpts for upcoming auditions. And towards the end of the master class, with the orchestra trumpet section. That sounds like it was great. Do you feel like what kinds of things do you feel like you learned from his class or from his teaching or from the class or from the Q&A? Yeah, Donald, I use that analogy with my students a lot. Like this idea of if you can only bench 225, but you want to be able to bench 315, if you just laid under 315 and went for it, you'd just probably injure yourself, right? Like you got to build up to being able to do that with good form so that not only can you accomplish it, but you can accomplish it in a healthy, controlled way. Like I notice my tongue can move almost this fast, but the second I try to tongue with clarity, my tongue just gets heavy. It just it goes from like and to so I think you can you could triple tongue like our let's see what's a good example triple tongue like this. When you're tonguing short groups or slowly, and especially in the orchestra, maybe you can get away with tonguing harder and having it work. But playing some of these cornet solos at blinding speeds, it's not going to work like that. And I've got to figure out how to lighten things up. I'm sure, Ruben, that's a long-winded question, or a long-winded answer to some that he gave, like probably a comprehensive, longer-winded answer. But um, I'm always interested in that kind of thing. If it's possible for you to sort of sum up what his way of approaching auditions was, because he's had a fair amount of success. He's obviously won at least Colorado. I'm pretty sure he won a job before that. He's been in the finals for some other really big jobs. So if it's possible to sum it up, I'm sure other people would be curious too, what he has to say if it's possible to sum it up. See, like that was better than the first time. That very last time was better than the first time. I don't have my rotary, so we can't do that. So we'll do a quick warm up on the piccolo, but we're not gonna go crazy because I have to perform Tromba Solo next, and that piece is 11 minutes, and it's very taxing. So yeah, just an easy warm up on the piccolo. Some quick. Oh, we'll play a quick excerpt. Now, I wonder if it's worth me trying to build. It's kind of a long time ago, but I do remember saying that. Took many auditions. Yeah, man. I'm definitely a believer that failure is an integral part, and I think there are a good many people that would agree that failure is an integral part of being successful in auditions. And so, like, it's my theory now that people should be testing out um, programs. Like, maybe it's mine, maybe it's somebody else's, maybe it's their own. I don't know, but people should be testing things out to see what works and what doesn't work, so that when they get to an audition that they care about, they have a system that they've already built. You know what I mean? Instead of it being like, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to fail, and then like, oh, I guess I'll just try again next time. If you write down everything you did for an audition, you might be able to build yourself over the course of time a really good audition prep. And that might be worth a lot. Back in undergrad, I wanted to get my triple tongue faster. As the sales test, I went with the more of the horn. Yeah, and like I was saying, I think I'm working. I think in the orchestra, there's just a difference, right? In the orchestra, when I'm double tonguing, I'm trying to think, how do I get this thing as far away as I can? How do I project as much as I can? But when you listen to guys like Alan Vazudi, Sergei Nakarikov, and Hokan, like, yeah, they're projecting and stuff, but you can tell there's a more intimate approach to it. Whether it's brighter or darker or whatever, it's just not as sort of bombastic and big, right? And I think sort of like a less broad approach makes it so that they're just working a little bit less. They're not trying to project across the room to play this. Yeah. Um, what would my dream performance be? Playing any hall, any group, any piece. This is a really interesting question to ask me at this point in my life, because the old me would have answered like Chicago Symphony Hall, Bruckner 7 or something. Now I don't really think about it that much. I've just changed so much on this kind of idea. To give you an answer, though, if it had to be like an orchestra, I would say maybe Boston Symphony playing at Tanglewood. Maybe playing Daphnis and Chloe at Tanglewood or something like that. But yeah, it's just changed for me so much. I don't think about it in turn. I don't really think about like dream this or dream that as much anymore. My dreams have changed quite a bit from when I was younger. And my dream is not necessarily to play in a big orchestra anymore. It used to be like the only thing that I cared about. So, all right, I'm going to try to do this and see if I can get away with it. Okay. So I'm going to build us a thing here that allows us to see all of Tromba Solo. Oh my gosh. This might be more than I bargained for. Where's page 1? I may give up on this in a second. Where is page 1? Found it. Okay. So we pull this down here. This is probably a fool's errand. All right, can you guys see that size? Or is that too small? If this is too small, we are going to abandon this idea. Okay, we are abandoning that idea. Okay. So the problem with this is it's going to be hard for me to move the music. But I'll just stop at the end of every page regardless. It's fine. All right, get my goal tempo here. All right, here we go. This is a full performance. So I'm going to be gone for like 11 minutes. So leave comments on, that sounds cool, this is weird, this piece is great. We can keep talking about favorite performances, favorite hauls. Just like go ahead and leave a whole bunch of stuff to talk about when I'm done, because I'm going to be gone for a little while. Okay. The end of that is what we call survival mode. My tongue is tired. It's not easy, but it's not bad either. Um, I mean, there's certainly some room to improve, and I'm going to go back through after I do Cascades. I'm going to go back through and do like 2 repetitions. I think I wrote at 70% tempo. Yeah, 70%. So I got to go up to the top here. Look at what my tempos are. Take them times 70% when I get there. But first, we're going to do a run of Cascades. And then the same thing. Yeah, that felt pretty good. It's definitely better than it was 7 weeks ago. That's for sure. It's crazy. One of the craziest parts about running a program is you just have no idea how it's going to go, right? You have no idea how it's going to go when you get to this week. You just put everything you have into every repetition, and then you're just like, I'm just going to, the work will speak for itself. I feel pretty good about that. How do I mentally prepare for performing this sort of piece? Donald, do you have any, is it possible to make that question more specific? I mean, there's not, I don't think I can answer the question most effectively. If you don't mind clarifying if there's any aspects that you feel that you would struggle with mentally when putting this piece together, so I can respond to it a little bit more efficiently. While we do that, it's time to run Cascades now. Here we go. False start. Sorry for that little temper tantrum in the middle there. My glasses started fogging up. I was making all sorts of mistakes. Is there any image or idea that comes to mind that help you make music? As for me, it's hard to get a lot of music out of super technical stuff. I'm just lost in the notes. For example, we have pictures in our mind that help us play certain orchestral excerpts. Is there... not really, Donald, no. For something like Cascades or Tromba Solo, let me pull up Tromba Solo again. So for something like Tromba Solo, for unaccompanied pieces in general, things have to be over exaggerated. So this style is very, very, very tonguey, right? And so we have to get used to just that's a preparation thing, right? That's like I practice slowly, properly, so now I can control tonguing a lot. But the thing we can't lose, and it's easy to lose when, especially when you practice under tempo a lot, it's easy to lose line. It's easy for it to turn into bum 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 instead of bum bum bim bum 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 bee da dee that, right? It's easy for it to lose the intensity of the line. And so I'm just trying to make, with this particular piece, I'm trying to say, okay, forte, marcato. I'm going to keep talking, but I'm going to ask the chat, what does forte mean? Write your answers below. So it says forte, marcato, and then mezzo forte, ma marcato. So if we look up ma marcato, we get but. So we get, this says forte, marcato. It's easy, right? It's like easy to play forte and marcato. So then it says mezzo forte, but marcato. Keep it marcato. So it's a color change, but not an articulation change. And then over here we go, we have a crescendo, right? So we go from forte. To me, there is all sorts of phrasing that can happen within a phrase. And that happens within a dynamic. So at the beginning line, it's da-dee, da-dee, da-da-da, da-dee, da. That has like sort of this crescendo feel, but it doesn't actually become fortissimo. When you have this thing, to me, that this means it's leaving this color and becoming the next dynamic up. So then you're taking this sort of a little bit more laid back mezzo forte, and you're intensifying it to forte. Now, again, I'm waiting for somebody to for people to take their guesses on what forte means. And then we have these right here. Ba da 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 dum. Do dee dee da 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 da. And then down here we have da 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 da. So every time that has that, I'm trying to bring that out, right? Trying to hold the notes out, trying to play as close to in time as I can, and I'm trying to hold all these notes out. When it says subito mezzo piano, subito forte, back down to mezzo forte, poco diminuendo. The reason I'm pointing out all these things, because especially in a piece like this, doing everything and then having a line will make music. And so we don't have to worry so much about we just have to do what's on the page. The music comes out when we do everything that's on the page. So if you're playing forte but not marcato, or you're playing marcato but not forte at the beginning, you would run into something like this. Here is forte but not marcato. Right? It's not bad. It's not a bad sound, right? It's not a bad vibe. Here is marcato, but not forte. Okay, so lighter, more agile. Um, but not as exciting, right? So if we put those two things together, this is what we get. And thus you have the music of the first line, or the, yeah. And so you just got to do that throughout the whole piece, and so it becomes overwhelming to do everything all the time, which is why I split things up into sections and I practice them many times under tempo to make sure I'm ingraining all of those little details. And then also in a piece like this, you get this figure, right? So you get da, 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 1 2 3 1 2 3. Ba ba ba. That's this figure. That's this figure. You've heard it a third time. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 da 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 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. So ba beep beep da 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 da. You want to bring out these little groups of 3. Da 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 da. All right, now we're gonna hear bumping. Okay, so we have it again. It's gonna be a little bit different. This is sort of like our call, like this thing that gives signposts to everything. 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3. And then 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. So now this becomes the signpost. That's the signpost. That's the signpost. That's the signpost. It no longer becomes this thing, it becomes this. So just bringing out these elements. Starts with forte, and then I have to go to FF. Okay, good, Donald. Yeah, dynamics are certainly relative to what's going on. What's the dictionary definition? If anybody else wants to jump in, what's the dictionary definition of forte? Also, is what I'm talking about, does this make any sense at all, or do I need to abandon this? I know this doesn't have anything to do with the mental side of it just yet, but we're getting there. And here you can see we have all tons of markings here. You know, of body, body, ba da 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 body, do da dee, da da dee da da dee. Yeah, it's got all these markings. If you do everything, you're gonna have 95% of the music there. And then all that's left is not losing intensity in the long notes. To practice that, if you feel like you struggle with it, you would just subdivide it. So you would play this. This is a really great way to increase your energy in long notes if you feel that it becomes flat. We'll go down at the tempo change. So this is how I would practice that if I felt like I was not able to maintain energy. You just do the subdivision, and it forces you to keep the energy going because you can feel the rhythmic pulse. And then when you play the long note, then when you feel like you sort of pretend or internally subdivide the rhythmic pulse, everything works out beautifully. Mason is correct. It is strong. So this is an important part of dynamics, is that it took me one day, it's like the heavens opened up and then God threw a lightning bolt at me, right? And I just thought, oh my gosh, dynamics aren't volumes, they're colors. And this like changes the game for me and how you would interpret forte, piano, things like that. It's not like a dial where it's forte, piano. It's a color, so that the color has to change, but the intensity of sound might. So you might be able to play an intense piano or maybe a relaxed forte. And this is where you start to get into some of the nitty gritty, finer, refined details of how to do this. So this comes from your internal concept. So I've listened to Ole Edvard Antonsen's recording of this a fair amount. So I have a lot of his interpretation in there. I think I'm playing it a little bit straighter than he is, but I have a lot of his sound concept and interpretation. So then I'm trying to keep my airstream similar, but you sort of change the intensity of it and all that kind of stuff. We can talk about that if you want. And then you're left with, I'm playing a strong opening that's well articulated. I'm going to look up the dictionary definition of marcato too. Marcato. with emphasis. So, articulate. Like, da, 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 da. Every note is equal. So to do this, to get to a place where you're mentally ready to do this, to finally answer your question, you first and foremost need a concept, right? You have to know what you're trying to do. If you're approaching this music and you don't really know what you want it to sound like or what it could sound like through a recording, you're going to have a much more difficult time feeling confident in it just because you don't really know what it should sound like. The second step then would be a level of preparation that allows you to, or a style of preparation that allows you to dig out all of the details, right? Especially in unaccompanied music. Maybe in the Haydn, there's like no dynamics, very few articulations, if any. I mean, we buy editions that have added dynamics, but I'm pretty sure his original manuscript did not have dynamics or markings on it. So then you get the details in there, and then the last part is I've been working on this for 13 or 14 weeks, right? And so the last part is it just slowly, that concept seeping into the details, and then those two things coming together. I cannot perform this piece at the level that I would really love to be able to do because my tongue cannot move fast enough. So I'm going to do my best this week to perform. Same thing with Cascades. I'm going to do my best to perform and see what I got. And we're going to put it away and we're going to learn other things. I'm going to try to keep getting better at the trumpet. And I'm sure as I lighten up my tongue, as I increase my tonguing speed, things like Cascades and Tromba Solo will become easier just from that skill. I think it's good to talk about dynamics on the basis of color, but also the range of volume. It's important we know that pianoforte differs in color. Yeah, you can certainly think about it that way, but volume, in my estimation, volume is perceived. I did an experiment with a trombone player friend of mine where I sat on stage in Indianapolis, and I sat on stage in Indianapolis and I played Mahler 5, and he went out to the front of the stage and with a decibel meter, and I played the loud part of it as loudly as I possibly could, and then I played it like 5 or 10%. So it was big, it was bold, but it didn't sound like I was playing as loud as I could. And the loudest version of it was like 98 decibels, or maybe 100. And then the other version of it that I took a couple off was like 96 decibels. Right? So the actual volume was like 2 or 3 or 4 decibels different. But to your ear, one was considerably softer. Like you could tell a difference. And then we experimented with playing soft dynamics. And so I did something like Schumann 2 and tested that. And you would assume if your very loudest dynamic was 100 decibels, that Schumann 2 might be like 50 or 60, but it was like 87. For my softest dynamic was 10 decibels lower. So yes, there is a physical volume difference, but it's not as much as perceived. And I think also what you're talking about, basis of color, but also the range of volume, I think those two things are related, right? So yes, the volume gets softer, but the color will change. And it's just, I think it's very important to understand that the volume is perceived by our ear by sound waves and stuff like that. And so I think it's much more effective to say this piano, and what it does, ultimately what it does is if you think piano is soft, a soft volume, you're going to pull in and not try to make sound. If you view piano as a soft color, you will play out and you will fill the sound, but it can still have this sort of covered lyric quality to it. That's sort of my take on that. I mean, you can think of it in different gears, but I try not to think about production on the trumpet. This is me personally. Everybody's got different ways of doing this. Me personally, I try to play everything on the trumpet conceptually the same airspeed for ranges, for dynamics, everything like that, so that it all feels about the same. Actually, you're totally right. That's what we found was the sound was just distorted. So although up close the sound sounded physically louder, there's no way it would project. It would. There's no way. The one where you pulled back a little bit and just was focused in the center of the sound would project significantly more and be heard. You would also ride on top of the overtones of everybody else more, and it would sound fuller. It'll sound better, and it'll get out into the audience. I think you're totally right. Mario, I'm thinking my next program I'm going to run an audition. I might pull the Pittsburgh Symphony Principal Trumpet audition from a couple summers ago. See if I can find that in my email. And I bet I could find it real quick. Oh, yeah, here it is. I'm thinking I might pull this list because they have all of the excerpts are listed. It's a 3-page thing, so it's a huge list. And I might run this on the audition programming that I have right now. See if I can dig deep and learn stuff about the pieces. Share with you guys if you're curious, my findings on different recordings, different interpretations, what things in terms of interpretation, what I'm finding, and we'll talk about things like note groupings and sort of how I would approach preparing for an audition now. I did this back in February or so basically a year ago, or maybe it was around March or so. I prepared for my CSO audition on stream, but I've learned a lot since then. So, yeah. I might actually do some of this on Cascades. I would say that I don't know. I don't think I need to do anything on Cascades. I think I just was very tired. Tromba Solo. Okay, so Tromba Solo. What do you guys think? Some of the issues. Oh, I know what I need to do. I need to do moderato to the end of the page. So moderato to the end of page 5. 244 times 0.7. 188, 171. All right, I'm going to do this muted thing real quick. Probably just one time. What I struggled with is what I always struggle with. It could have been fatigue. I'm not used to performing this piece all in one shot. But I struggled with just getting the F's on the top of the staff to pop out. So I'm gonna focus in, get one good repetition, and if I feel like I need another one, then I'll do that. Okay. So I know this is going to sound strange probably, but I'm going to stop that section there. And the reason why I'm not going to do it again and again and again, because when I performed it, it didn't go as well as I wanted it to. But for me, I think what's a stronger thing to do is to leave it where you think I did it. The last time I did it right. Yes, I could do it again, but at this point in the process, I've done so many repetitions that the problem is not understanding. The problem is just fatigue, right? I need to get used to playing that after I've played the first 5 pages. And so that will take time. That will take running it, 5 or 6 times over the next 2 weeks. So we will get there. I should do this at the top of the page here too. Okay, and then I know that I was actually kind of happy with the way that this last page went. Even though I was in total survival mode. It's just like I'm so tired by this point. And I remember I played this for Ellsworth Smith in 2012. That's when I learned this piece. And I could do this. So I know that my problem with this is not that I'm not strong enough. It's that I just performed it a bunch around that time because I wasn't actually doing any of the detail work. I hadn't done any of the detail work. I just performed it over and over and over and over and over again. And so I'm not sure what the best way to go about doing this is. If I should maybe split it in half and perform half of the piece and half of the piece, or maybe split it into thirds. Maybe do 2.5 pages, 2.5 pages, and 2 pages. And then work my way up to doing that. But I just know that if I play the end like this every single time, this is why people start at the end sometimes, right? They start at the end because they want to they want to get good repetitions on it when you're fresh, so you learn how to do it. Well, that's why I split it into a section. So I understand what's going on there, but my chops are super tired. So I might do that. I might perform this piece in thirds and give myself a rest in between. So it would be something like page 1, page 2, and maybe stop here, right? And then the next section, the rest of page 3, page 4, and all of page 5. And then maybe page 6 and 7. And we'll see if I can start to connect, and maybe I'll do half the piece and half the piece after that to see if I can start to connect this and build my way up. Because I want, even when performing, to be getting good repetitions. I'm just not quite there yet. So the end of this piece is at 120 times 0.7, 80, so 480 times 0.7, 336. All right, last repetition here. And that's where I will end my practice session. So tomorrow, I'm not going to stream tomorrow. I'll stream on Thursday, though. And I'm going to run Cascades first and then do this piece in 3 sections. Does anybody have any questions about any of the stuff we did? If not, that's totally fine. But I just want to make sure I offer it up. in case somebody does before I get out of here. All right, everybody. I appreciate you watching. I'm learning right now. I am currently learning that I believe that we are all. I'm capable of more. I got to dig deep and find out what that is, and I believe all of you are capable of doing really great things and digging deep. And so I hope you take that opportunity to invest in yourself, learn about yourself, challenge yourself, and really find out what am I capable of, what's the best version of myself possible. And if there's any way I can help, I would love to do that. But if not, I hope that you go find that, because there's nobody else that can except for you. I hope you have a good day, and we'll